The first person I'd like you to meet tonight, does anybody recognize this picture? Joseph, Trumpeldor, heard the name. The name is Trumpeldor. The name is familiar. He was born on the 21st of November 1880 in Piotogorsk. It's a small town in, I think it's Lita. But the family moved to the city of Rostov, very famous city. When he was a little boy, like many boys at the time, he learned in the Cheder, traditional Jewish studying place. Then he moved into the General School of Rostov, and he did amazingly well over there. When he was 14, he became a vegetarian. Why do I mention this? It was quite uncommon at the time for people to be vegetarians, because it's a relatively new idea. Meat is not good for you. And just look at me. Does it look like I eat meat all the time? Because I do. I eat everything. Sorry?
What made him become vegetarian?
Age 14.
No, what made him?
What made it? That's not
we
in the
It's
text.
beyond the scope of the course.
Okay, that's another course. That's
I don't know,
another
maybe
course.
he had a cat and he loved his cat. I
Maybe a kosher meat.
Oh, that's right. That sounds good. No. There were so many Jews in Rostov and anywhere in Poland and Lita, you could get kosher meat easier. That's not a joke. Easier than any other meat. He wanted to go into the high school, but he couldn't enter because of something called numerus clausus. You know what that is. This is the policy that there's only a certain number of Jews allowed into a certain profession, and he was by the time he wanted to go into the
Quota. It's called quotas.
Well, yeah. Yes, and so he had to go and study something else, and he actually became a dentist. That's interesting, a dentist. I didn't know that. And he became familiar with the Zionist ideas, and he created a Zionist group around him, people he was sitting together and talking about. On 1902, he joined the Russian army. This is him in his uniforms in the Russian army. Though he was very anti-militant person, he didn't like wars or anything, but he didn't want to be described as the frightened Jew, but he's afraid of war. So he joined the army, and very quickly became known as a very, very brave young man who's been involved in all kinds of commando operations. It gave him the Gregorian Cross level 4, and then he carried on in his special missions. And on the 20th of August 1904, a shell actually destroyed his left arm. So he was one-armed person, but after he recovered somehow, somewhat recovered, he asked to join back his regiment, which he was allowed and was very well appreciated. And again, his fame as a hero grew wider, and later he was actually given the Gregorian Cross stage 3, level 3. It's another. He became Major Sergeant and was very well admired by his soldiers. And that was the time of the Russian-Japanese War. And in the 2nd of January, the military installation, which he was part of the defense, had to surrender to the Japanese, and he was taken into Japan as a POW. In that camp, there were 70,000 Russians, out of them 1,739 Jews. That's the official number. And in the less than a year that he was there, he developed a school for the Jewish students, a library, a theater group. Before Pesach, he asked for a request, and he was given a request to bake matzot. And he even printed his own Rosh Hashanah cards for all the other Jews. So a very, very active person. And he was released in 1906, and he became the first Jew to be appointed an officer of the Russian army without having to convert to Christianity before he found out. This is how admired he was by everybody who knew him. So he went with a group of friends to Eretz Israel. Like I said before, he was a Zionist. And 15 men and women, and they established a place called Chavat Migdal. Chavat Migdal, you see, it's right here, northern to Tiberias, Tveria, near the Kinneret. You know why near the Kinneret? Because it's a source of water. So it's always, if you look, most of big cities and places in the world are situated, located where you have water. For example, this a very unknown city you heard of, Montreal, which is sitting on the water, or New York, or kind of unfamiliar places. It's always around water. This group dissolved. They couldn't carry on for whatever reason, and he moved into the Ganya. Ganya is a very famous place. Anyone who's been in Israel heard about the Ganya. This is the Ganya Aleph, it's Ganya Bet, because it was so big and so successful, it split into 2 different groups. And he was there, and he was there until 1913. He was appointed a delegate in the 11th Zionist Congress in Vienna. In the Congress in Vienna, Chaim Weizmann, which was later the first president of the State of Israel, and Menachem Usishkin, which was one of the main strongest Zionist activists, they came up with the idea of establishing the Hebrew University on Scorpion Mountain in Jerusalem, which is how it's looked today. This is the main building, it's a beautiful place. So he was there. On 1914, okay, after the Zionist conference, he went back to Eretz Israel. 1914, as the First World War broke and the Turkish authorities had a problem with anyone who was Russian, he left and went into Egypt. And by the time when he arrived in Egypt, he met with this man. I don't know if you recognize, Zev Jabotinsky, the leader of Beitar, the leader of what we call the right wing in the political map of Jewish people. And he met with him and he said, you know, we should help the British conquer the land of Israel, Palestine. Let us create a Jewish regiment which will fight within the British army. Jabotinsky was very much in favor, and they both contacted the British, and Trumpeldor had his reputation preceding him as a great soldier, and the British indeed agreed, and they established the regiment, which was called the Mule Drivers. The Mule Driver. Not really, fighting battalion, but they had some sort of they did make some contribution to the war efforts of the British, and this is the signature of Trumpeldor. Captain Zion Mule Corps. Okay, that's how he signed his name at that period. I detect some sort of a pride here, and he actually deserves it. The battalion mainly battled in Gallipoli, which is Turkey. And what you see here is the invasion of the British into Gallipoli. I can't see Trumpeldor in the picture. Can you see Trumpeldor anywhere here? You see a guy with one hand anywhere? No, I don't see him, and I don't see any horse or a mule. But it's supposed to be a picture from the period and from the event, so that's why I brought it. They had 650 soldiers in his battalion, and the Battle of Gallipoli, in the style of the First World War, took place between April 1915 to January 1916.
The battle of where?
Of Gallipoli. It's a small town near the Black Sea in Turkey. Right. The battles of all the wars until Second World War, when the Germans invented the idea of blitzkrieg, that's quick fighting, was always, trenches, sitting in a trench for months and months and months and moving inch by inch. That's why a battle would take almost a year, one single battle. 1917, Trumpeldor, this is how he looked at the time, not very ugly. 1917, he went back to Russia. He wanted to be part of the October Revolution, but he didn't really find his place over there because he was a Zionist, and he went back to Eretz Israel and went to live in a place called Tel Chai, which is here, Tel Chai. Tel Chai, unfortunately, was right in the middle of the French Arabian conflict at the time. We mentioned this briefly a couple of weeks ago. Now let me give you more information about this. After the First World War, there was the Versailles Treaty. You all know about that one. You know about the Sykes-Picot Treaty, which gave the French, what they tried to call themselves the French Empire, control over the areas of Iraq and Syria. Iraq of today and Syria. And the French thought that they don't really have to send a lot of forces and military and army and police to govern the area. And the Arabs had different ideas. They thought, well, with all due respect to the Sykes-Picot Agreement, this land belongs to us. So they rebelled against France. And this area was part of the, in the area of Tel Hai. For some reason, this area, because it's so close to Lebanon and Syria is here, Tel Hai was under dispute. Does this belong to the British, or does this belong to the French, or does this belong to the Arabs? The Arabs, of course, said it belongs to us. The British said it belongs to the French, and the French said it belongs to us, the French. So, at the beginning of this Arabian revolt against the French, they chased after whatever French troops they could find, and they left all the Jewish settlements alone, because they had no business with the Jews at the time. Naomi, you wanted to ask something?
That whole green area, that was British?
That was this is just to distinguish Eretz Israel from Lebanon and Jordan. That's why it's green. That's the reason for the color.
But what was it?
All this,
Yeah.
I was under British mandate.
Okay.
But for some reason, this place was under dispute. I'll tell you why. This map doesn't show. This area here looks like a inverted V or W. It's called Etzba HaGalil. Etzba is the finger. Galil is the Galil, yeah, the area here. This is the Galil, and Etzba because it's sticking out. It is like it's sticking. It's a finger sticking up from the whole area, which is an Arab area around here. Now, because this Arab area here, and Arab area here, there was not really a certainty what's happening with this. If you look at the border between the United States and Canada, it's so simple. It's one straight long line. Nothing to dispute about, nothing to argue about. But in Israel, when this area is so small and every single mountain, village, water well has an importance, you know, every square mile is important. That's why there's always arguments about every square mile, because it's a very small area. So, like I said, the Tel Hai area, we call it Chatzar Tel Hai, the Tel Hai court, as it looked at the time, was right in the middle of the disputed area. And the 1st of March, 1920, and Trumpeldor lives there, works there as a farmer, and he's almost also the commanding officer of the place in terms of military military situations. A group of Arabs, which were dressed like Bedouinians, group of Arabs who dressed like French. Sorry, I made a mistake here. Group of Arabs came to Tel Hai and said, "We'd like to see if you have any French officers inside your court, your living quarters." And Trumpeldor said, "Okay, fine, you can make a search." They didn't mind because they had nothing to hide, and there were no French there, so why to fight? What's to argue about? But then, as the Arabs entered and searched, and of course found nothing, they said, "Well, we are confiscating your weapons." Now that is something that the defenders of Tel Hai could not accept. This is our weapon, and we need it for our defense. So, started to fight about this, and the Arabs started to try and take the weapons out of the hands of the Tel Hai Jews by force. So Trumpeldor gave an order to open fire because there was no other way. So they opened fire, and a battle enraged, and few members of Tel Hai were injured. One of them was Trumpeldor himself, was badly injured in his stomach, and they didn't have a doctor, not a doctor. First aid or paramedic. There was nothing like that over there. So actually they said that he bandaged himself somehow. But as they were running low on ammunition, they had to retreat into a place called Kfar Giladi, which is a little point not far from there. And on the way, Trumpeldor died. That was the end of a very heroic person, which today stands in the conscience of all Israelis and all Jews as one of the first heroes in the process of the resurrection of our nation in Palestine, in Eretz Israel. And what you see here is the memorial for Tel Chai. And the story is that before he died, they asked him, so how are you feeling? Are you feeling in pain? What's going on with you? And he said, it's not so bad. This is a worthy cause to die for my country. It is good to die for my country. He said that. And his spirit, his character, his personality, who he was, has become in the conscience of us Israelis as a symbol of heroism. This is the first person I wanted to tell you about in more details. Now I'll introduce you to someone which you haven't heard before. Maybe you did. Have you heard of Bracha Fulch or Fold? Okay. The picture I'm showing you here, by the way, it's a picture I showed last year, if you guys remember. This is a German family, and I don't even know the name, a Jewish German family in Berlin. And what you see, I mean, I wish it was in colors, because the dresses must have been magnificent. The Germans are all also wearing, tuxedos, black ties. They put really shame the way I dress. Come on, look at these guys. The flowers. Look at the details of the armchairs. This and the chandelier and the pictures. What kind of feeling does it give you? Rich, aristocratic,
1%.
successful. Most of German Jews were very successful people, and you all know that. They were very proud people who called themselves, we are German of Jewish faith. You all heard that expression before. It was a financial success, a social success. They believed that they live in the most perfect world, and the German state, as it was before the Nazis, is the most wonderful place to live, especially before the economical crisis that were before the rising of the Third Reich. And this girl was a product of that society. This is Barbara, not Bracha, Barbara Fold. Barbara was born on 26th of December 1927 in Berlin. Her father was a businessman who did very well for himself. And in his youth, he was an officer in the artillery unit of the German army during the First World War. And he's done very well for himself. And when his daughter was born, he called her Barbara. Why? Not just because it's a nice name or German name. In the German army, every battalion, every special unit has its own goddess. And the goddess of the artillery was Sankt Barbara. Sankt is saint in German, Saint Barbara. So in honor of his own career in the army, in honor of the army itself, and in honor of his German fatherland, he called his daughter Barbara. She excelled in studies, she excelled in sports, she learned reading and writing on her own from notebooks of her older sister, and she won many prizes at school. Everything changed on January 1933 when the Germans, when the Nazis came to power. She started to feel anti-Semitism, and as a result of all these processes that took place in Germany at the time, her parents, not actually her parents, her mother, Luther is a very German name, decided to transfer Barbara into the Jewish school. That was 1935. Her father was not happy about this at all, but apparently her mother prevailed. 9th of November 1938, that is Kristallnacht. The burning of synagogues, the breaking of Jewish Jewish shop windows, and the arrest of thousands of Jews and the murder of hundreds of Jews, that broke her father Luther, and he committed suicide. He felt that his life might end. He was so German. He could not believe this is happening to him. So Luther, the mother, with Barbara and her sister, which I don't know what was her sister name, they ran away to France. From there they moved to England, and they stayed there for a while, where Barbara learned in a school near London, and after a few months they made Aliyah to Eretz Israel. If you remember when we studied last year, Aliyah HaChamishit, the fifth wave of Aliyah, which brought tens of thousands of German Jews into Eretz Israel, not because they became Zionists or all of a sudden, it's because they had no other choice. They had no other place to go.
They couldn't stay in England.
Apparently they couldn't. For some reason they came to Eretz Israel. The history books does not tell us exactly why the mother Luther decided. Of course, Barbara, being the clever and bright girl that she did extremely well in Israel too. Then Hebrew in no time, became member of youth movements known as Hatzofim and Habonim Dror. I don't know if the words mean anything to you, but it's two of the three major biggest youth movements. It's Hatzofim, Habonim Dror, and Bnei Akiva. Bnei Akiva is the religious one. I was a member of Bnei Akiva as a boy. Like all my friends, it was a normal thing. And when she finished her studies at the high school on the summer of 1944, she joined the Palmach. The Palmach was a paramilitary wing of the Haganah, as we explained a couple of weeks ago. And her plan was to move to the United States and study medicine. She wanted to be a doctor. But before she proceeded with anything she wanted to do for herself, she decided that she wants to serve the Palmach and do something for the people, do something for the Jews in Eretz Israel. Quite unbelievably, she was appointed a commanding officer of Palmach unit. A girl. She was 19. A woman at that time. It's not like today that you have women commanding in the army. It was very unique because she was really brilliant. On the night, on the 24th of March, the Haganah tried to sneak into Eretz Israel Sfinat Ma'apilim, which means a ship, a boat with illegal immigrants. We spoke about it again. We spoke about it last year. There was a certain quota, a number of people that the British allowed every month to come to Eretz Israel legally. It was not enough in order to save all the Jews that the Haganah wanted to save. So they kept bringing ships, boats with illegal immigrants. 95% of the cases, these ships were caught by the British, like you see here. 2 British destroyers on both sides, and this little ship was called Ode Wingate. This is Charles Ode Wingate, who was an officer in the British Army, a very Catholic, Christian Catholic person who deeply believed in the Bible and deeply believed that the land of Israel belongs to the Jews. I don't know nothing about Catholicism, so apparently there's a connection there. And he helped the Haganah a lot in training. The British Army didn't know he was doing it. He volunteered secretly to help the Haganah, and as an honor to him, this illegal immigrant ship was called after him, Ode Wingate. The plan was to land the ship at the shores of Tel Aviv. And in order for this ship to land in the shores of Tel Aviv and for all the Ma'apilim, the illegal immigrants on the boat, to jump to the water, run to the beach and find refuge in the houses of Tel Aviv, they needed the police to be, the Haganah needed the police to be busy somewhere else. So there were few units dispersed in Tel Aviv. And one was in 2 streets, Yehuda Halevi, the corner of a street called Mamurek. I happen to know this place personally because in Yehuda Levin, my grandfather used to live in Mamrek. There was a synagogue we used to go to Daven on Shabbat from time to time with one of my friends from school. And I know the building. And in that building, they created, Barbara went there with her unit that she was commanding on, and they created some sort of situation when the British police will feel that something funny is going on here, a distraction. So a British police car came closer to the building, and Barbara gave an order, and the Palmach, they opened fire on that British police car, and it was a battle between them, which was designed to keep the attention of the British away from what was happening on the beach. Same thing happened in another corner of the streets in Ibn Gvir Mall. Ibn Gvir Street is a very long street. Any of you know Tel Aviv well? No? Have you ever seen the Tel Aviv City Hall? The Rabin Square? This is Ibn Gvir Street, going on the eastern side of it. Anyway, the sad thing is that the ship was caught. The old the boat was caught by the British, like I showed you. Two Navy destroyers caught it in the sea. But still, the fighting in Tel Aviv carried on, and Barbara was injured. She took a round in the stomach, and she got badly injured. And sadly, she died before the British policeman took her to the hospital. They say that maybe her life could have been saved if she would have been taken to the hospital in time, but the British didn't really care much about that. The story of Barbara, which in Israel was given the name Bracha, is a Jewish name instead of Barbara, is another example of a heroine, young Jewish girl who volunteered, put her life on hold. She didn't go to the States to study medicine. She put her life on hold and sacrificed herself for the establishment of the State of Israel. In a very typical response to this event, there was another boat with illegal immigrants, and this boat left Italy on October 9th, 1946, and this boat was called Bracha Fort. This is how they chose to honor, and this is how the name will never be forgotten. 626 illegal immigrants were on board on that boat. They met on the way they got together with another small boat called Albertina and took an extra 180 passengers aboard. And you can see, this is something we spoke about, I think, last year, the conditions on those boats. This was not the Queen Mary. This was quite horrible conditions on those illegal. And this is not a boat. This is a bucket. Come on, who wants to sail on that? I wouldn't sail even if they paid me. You actually can see here Bracha Fold. The name was written on the boat.
What happened to the illegal immigrants? Did they sink the ships or what?
No.
What happened to them?
Illegal immigrants who were caught, up to a certain point, they were kept in a place called Atlit in Israel, which is a detention camp. Okay. And as from 1946, the British started to deport them to Cyprus. Because there was just no, they came in thousands. There was no room. In Atlit, you could put up to 3,600 people at a time. So eventually, all the illegal immigrants on Bracha Ford, this boat was caught by the British as well, and the illegal immigrants were deported to Cyprus. Today you have in Tel Aviv, this is Ibn Gvir Street. It's actually a very excellent bakery just right there. If you ever want to give you the address. I grew up in that area. This is Bracha Ford Street. As a boy, I went through that street. I don't know how many times without even knowing the story behind it. And a book that was written in her memory. And after she was killed, the Palmach published this poster, Yizkor, meaning let it be remembered. May the people of Israel remember its daughter Bracha Fol, the brave and the pure who died to sanctify the operation of illegal immigrants coming to the state and be saved from those who serve the white paper. She fell she fell for the people and for the nation, and her character will be a symbol for all members of the Haganah and all those who come around her life aim, which is independence for our people. And the Jewish young people will always remember that. That's more or less what this says. Okay, the next item. You recognize this road? It's in Israel. Can you guess? Can anyone guess what is this? What is this place?
Jerusalem.
Oh, good. This is the road to Jerusalem, as it is today. It's a very good road. It's a, and I drove roads in many places in the world. I can tell you it's a very high quality road, very good. And you notice that the road is in a valley. It is surrounded by mountains and hills. In military terms, this is called the bottleneck. Okay, because there's no way to escape. Even today, when this is a modern road, imagine how it was 1948. Okay. This is Abed Kader al-Husseini, leader of the Arabian Falahim, farmers, which were the majority of the Arab people at the time. And he, at the beginning of the independence war in Eretz Israel, realized that the Jews are braver than the Arabs. And who shall win that war? The one who controls the roads. Took a quick look at the map. He saw a few places where the Jews are going to have a problem to defend. The road to Jerusalem is one of them. So he developed a system whenever he sees convoys and cars and vehicles moving from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, they will be attacked by all the Arabian villages in the area, and they will stop the traffic and they will squeeze Jerusalem to death, because Jerusalem at the time was dependent on Tel Aviv for supply. Jerusalem was not the big city as it is today. Actually, even today, by the way, all of supplies that Jerusalem has comes from Tel Aviv. Because Jerusalem, because of all the mountains, is not a very good manufacturing area. At a certain point, his strategy. Sorry, before that. So, how do we move from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim to bring people, take people, bring supply? In armored cars. And you all have seen the pictures of the armored cars doing their ways to Jerusalem, and the remainings of them, which they are serving as what's called memorials. So they move in convoys, armored cars and armored buses. You see the people in Yerushalayim standing in the queue to enter the bus. Terrific window, right? Great view from this metal. Indeed, every convoy, you know, sometimes when the cars arrived in Jerusalem, that's how they looked. So, you know, everything was hauled by bullets, by bullets. Yes, they had groups of what we know in Hebrew, melavei hashayot, those who accompany fighters who accompany the convoys. Sorry for the small picture, but I didn't have a better one. This is Yonah Golani, which I consider one of the heroes of the period. Yonah Golani was a bus driver who drove every few days from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, from Yerushalayim to Tel Aviv, and he describes in his memories how you drive your bus, which is armored, and you drive the bus and suddenly you see the bus in front of you going on, you know, being shot at, you know, driving through a landmine. It explodes and flies in the air. It says, you know who's there? It's your friends. It's tearing you apart. It's killing you. Emotionally, you have to carry you. They go around, and you have to carry on. And why did we drive? How could we do this? He said, because if we didn't, Jerusalem would die. So we went into the bus and said, we didn't think about their wife, we didn't think about the children, because if we thought about their wife and the children, they wouldn't be able to move. One of the heroes of the period is Yonah Bonani. But at a certain point, Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini managed with his tactics to keep Jerusalem isolated, especially from the moment that the Arabs could put their hands on those kind of bullets that can pierce through armor, through the armor car. There is such special round that can go through, not through modern tanks, but through the armors that they had at the time. They got their hands on those bullets that can go through, and then people actually got, it was a death trap inside those buses. So at a certain point, all the convoys to Jerusalem stopped, and the people of Jerusalem started to starve. So at a certain time, the commanding officer of the Haganah said, we've got to find a way around the bottleneck. This is the road to Jerusalem. You know, Tel Aviv is here, Yerushalayim is there, if you can read this. This is Latron, which was the police, and this is Sha'ar HaGai. This was the mainly the dangerous area, this area here. They decided we gotta find a way. And before they even managed to decide how do we find a way, three guys, Aryeh Tefer, Yair Mundlek, and Shlomo ben Shalom. They were fighters, members of the Palmach. And for whatever personal reason, one of them, which we don't know which one of these three, one of them had to go back home in Tel Aviv. He was in Yerushalayim. He got a telegram from his mother, something in the family happened, you've got to get there. So he said, what am I going to do? And there was no way to drive, because of the bottleneck. This was closed. Nobody could pass. So he took two of his friends, and they decided we are going to walk. As soon as the sun set, they put their backpacks on the backs, and they started walking from Yerushalayim. All that within one night. In the morning, they found themselves here. They said, wait a minute, we just went around all these bottleneck. And when they recalled and thought again of the road they made, they said, wait a minute, this could be a solution. So the guy who had to go home went home. Then they got together at the commanding center of the Palmach, and they managed to draw a general map of how they walked from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. And a group of Palmachnikim went to check the area, and they found that indeed they can go through here around the bottleneck, but they need to clean up from Arab hostiles in those areas here. So the first thing they did, now that was easy. Why? Because the Arabs were very brave, shooting from the top of the hill down onto the continent. That they did very well. For that they were very brave. They were not too brave to fight face to face with the members of the Palmach. So they actually ran away quickly as soon as they saw the Palmach. The Palmachniks didn't have to fight too hard for those areas, and they just, in a couple of days, they cleaned up the entire area, and then they brought bulldozers and equipment, and they prepared the road for vehicles. And this has become known as the Burma Road, named after the Chinese Burma, famous Burma Road in China. For some vehicles it was very easy to pass. For some heavy vehicles it was very difficult. You see a caterpillar here actually dragging an ambulance in the mountains of Jerusalem after the road was open. Question?
We went driving there this summer. The road is still the same.
It is.
Hasn't changed.
Lucky you went driving. I went walking in school.
Yeah, we did the march to Jerusalem.
Through there?
Yeah.
Okay. There was a sudden gap in the road. I'll go back and show you. Don't know exactly where, was a certain gap, I think somewhere here, that no vehicles could pass. So a convoy went that way, stopped here, another convoy went out that way, and they one stopped here, one stopped here. The Palmachniks put all the materials on their backs. They walked that distance up to the next point where they could actually go on the vehicles and drive on. So if you picture here with the Palmachniks with all the equipment and the supplies all on their backs.
Where's that Chimshon?
Sorry?
That Chimshon?
That Chimshon is somewhere. I think it's somewhere else.
It's another road.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is how it looked then. This is how it looks now. And you see the marking here. This is the marking that the Keren Kayemet Israel marks, and all these places that you won't lose your way. They are in fact in the middle of an Arab village or something, because the Arab villages are still there. So this is the story of the Boom Road, discovered by Yair Tepper, Yair Mondlek, and Shlomo Ben Shalom. And these three, walking down at night from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, they saved lives of many people living in Jerusalem who would have starved to death until the war would have been over.
Did you spell that, the name of the road?
Burma.
Burma.
Yeah.
B-U-M-A.
Okay,
Okay.
so this is a story of three Palmachniks, the heroes of the time who found the Burma road and saved Jerusalem with their initiative. Next story. Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini knew that it's not only the road between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem which is a bottleneck and can be used against the Jews, also the road between Yerushalayim and what known as Gush Etzion. Etzion is the name of a village, Kfar Etzion. And there were four villages, four like kibbutzim. Kfar Etzion, Ein Tzurim, Masuot Yitzchak, and Gvaram. These four, they call them Gush. Gush means like a group of four villages. As the hostilities became worse and worse even before the first month of 1948, even before the declaration of statehood, the Gush Etzion became isolated from Yerushalayim, just like Yerushalayim was isolated from Tel Aviv at the beginning. And same problem, the people in these four kibbutzim became under attack from the Arabs, started to starve, because they were dependent on supplies that came from Jerusalem, which came from Tel Aviv. Okay, from time to time, the Palmach and Haganah managed to pass a convoy from Yerushalayim to Gush Etzion, and on 27th of March, a huge convoy, in terms of those days, left Yerushalayim and made its way to Gush Etzion. They had 33 trucks. I think it's doing logistics. It's a lot, even today.
Sure.
33 trucks, 120 tons of supply. 103 Palmach fighters to accompany this this very big convoy. Here's a picture of some of the Palmachniks that morning before they left Jerusalem. So the picture, 4 armored cars was with 28 fighters was stationed in Ramat Rachel, which is near Yerushalayim, between Yerushalayim and Gush Etzion, just as a reserve. And this is Tzvi Zamir, the commander of the convoy. Later you see in his ranks he became a general in the Israeli army of the independent state, Tzvi Zamir. And the convoy made its way. They started on 8 o'clock in the morning, and there was a little airplane called Primus, very old kind of airplane that was actually patrolling the skies. And somehow this convoy made the way between Yerushalayim to Gush Etzion in an hour and a half, which is not bad time at all for that kind of equipment, vehicles, and roads and times, and without a single shot. Thank God, everything went very well. They made by the tree. I still didn't figure out what is the story about the tree. Why is the tree so significant here? But they made near the tree, and near the tree they started to unload the convoy. The unloading, which should have taken not too much time, indeed didn't take much time. But before they went back, they were asked to take 2 bulls, and to push these bulls on one of the trucks was a really big mission, which took a long time. And they also had a broken airplane that they put to pieces, and to load that on the trucks, all that took too much time, and they were ready to start back around 11:30 instead of turning back immediately as the original plan. In the meantime, which picture number am I? 44. Okay. Here's nice pictures of people, members of the convoy, taken that day, talking to each other, and they looked very happy. It was really a sense of euphoria. Everything is good. We did all the way from Yerushalayim to Gush Etzion without a single shot fired at us. That's good. But things went wrong at that moment. In the meantime, the Arabs, who did not shoot the convoy for one simple reason. Why did they shoot?
They were ambushing.
They
No.
were saving their ammunition.
No, they didn't know anything about it. They just didn't know. You think, Arab villagers get up too early in the morning? I don't know. 8 o'clock, it was the surprise element. Nobody knew. The moment they knew about it, they gathered together. Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini, which is the guy you see here with some of his friends and officers, whatever they were, was given an order by the Arab High Command: stop this convoy and destroy it. He had thousands of people at his disposal. All the Arab villagers from the neighborhoods, from the area around. And of course, the element of surprise was gone. This is Daniel Buchstein. He was a pilot. And he was piloting this little airplane called Oster. Oster, is that the right name? Oster. And he sent reports to the High Command of the Haganah. I can see thousands of Arabs, hundreds and thousands of Arabs, massing towards the road between Yerushalayim and Gush Etzion. Now, the commanders of the Haganah had to make a decision. What are we doing? Are we going back? Are we staying and waiting until the Arabs, just go away because nothing is happening, we can't see any convoy, and try and move the convoy back into Yerushalayim and maybe get back the element of surprise, which might save us? However, because of the success of the morning, they became somewhat overconfident. They did have few machine guns, they had many guns, they had a lot of ammunition to defend themselves. And on top of that, for a military reason, those 103 Palmachnik fighters were needed back in Jerusalem the same day. I don't know why. The textbook didn't say. They were needed. So they decided to go back to Jerusalem from Gush Etzion. So and at the same time, the Arabs are waiting for them in the hills and the mountains with all kinds of weapons, whatever they have. So the convoy went on the road, knowing that part of the things that the Arabs are doing to ambush the convoy and stop the convoy so they can shoot it at will is to create those barriers on the road. So you see the barriers here, very big stones. The Haganah had some sort of defense, some sort of an idea how to tackle, how to deal with those barriers. This is the armored car, which is known in Hebrew, Poretz HaMachsomim. Poretz is the one who breaks through. It's like a barrier buster. It goes through. It's some sort of a lever here. Don't know exactly how it left, but it was moving up and down. It could actually clear everything off the road. It worked very often when they needed it. I know the picture is not very good. Sorry, it's only a picture of this car. And this was the car that was leading the convoy together with the little jeep that had a radio and sent information to what was going on. The first few barriers were pushed away by this armored car that I showed you, by the barrier buster. The commander of the barrier buster was this guy, Zerubbabel Horowitz. There's not much information about him. He was born in Lita, and when he was 9, his parents came to Eretz Israel, and he lived in a kibbutz called Tel Yosef. He landed school, and in the age of 16 he joined the Palmach, and that's it. That's about him. And there's a whole book written about him, but it's telling more about his youth as a child. And he was a very little guy, a very nice guy, and everybody liked him. They didn't call him Zerubbabel, which is a very long and heavy name. They called him Bavel, like the Babylonian guy. And there was nothing really very significant about him until that day. He was the commander of the barrier buster, and under his command, the barrier buster broke all the first 3 barriers, but he got stuck for a while by the 4th one. At the same time, one of the trucks that was doing its way back to Jerusalem rolled down on the sideway, and then the convoy stopped for a moment, and then the Arabs opened fire. And again, they had those special rounds, the bullets that go through, the armor-piercing bullets, and a lot of people got injured immediately. After a couple of minutes, Zerubbabel managed to break through the barrier, and they went on under fire, until the 7th barrier, which the buster could not break through. These 4. Okay, and this moment, the convoy was stuck. An order was given for those trucks and armored cars that can turn back and go back to the Gush Etzion, go back. They were given an order to go. Most of them could not turn back and go because the Arabs shot at the wheels and the tires were gone. So they were sitting down. And that all happened in a place called Nebi Daniel. It's right in the middle of the way between Gush Etzion and Yerushalayim. Nebi Daniel is the prophet Daniel. Traditionally, the prophet Daniel, there's a book in the Bible called the Book of Daniel, traditionally he's buried there. And he is holy, I don't know why, he was Jewish, but he is holy to the Arabs too. Nebi is a prophet in Arabic, right? Nebi Daniel. Okay. This is the way it happened. And at a certain point, when the Arabs were running towards the convoy and attacking from close range, which makes it even more dangerous, the survivors of the convoy, which were quite a large number at that moment, were ordered to go and move into this lonely, deserted house near the road. And of course, this house is a far better defense than the armored cars, because piercing armored bullets cannot go through this kind of very heavy and thick old walls. This is relatively safe. So they moved into this house and stayed there. But at the 7th barrier, which the barrier buster could not break through, the armored car carrying this leather rolled also to the side of the road and got stuck over there. And all the people there, most of them got injured by the armor-piercing bullets. Zerubbabel himself, the commanding officer of this vehicle, was unharmed. He was just fine. But as the Arabs were getting closer and closer, and if a Jewish non-injured person was captured by the Arabs, they would execute him. They would kill him on the spot, but not very quickly. They would torture him to death. So all the attempts to rescue the people who are stuck inside that armored car failed, and right before the Arabs were closing on the car, Zerubbabel Horowitz took whatever dynamite and explosive he could find, and as soon as the Arabs came just around it, he blasted the armored car with all the injured people, and he sacrificed himself to save the lives, or to save the injured people from being tortured to death by the Arabs. So Zerubbabel Horowitz, after his death, was crowned as Gibor Israel, a hero of Israel. He is the highest. If you have all kind of medals that the army can give, this is the highest medal, the highest level he can reach. This is how it looks. This kind of medal. Since the state of Israel was established, only 40 of those were distributed. Only 40. This really goes to those who have shown an incredible heroism. The survivors of the convoy radioed to the British Army, who was still in Eretz Israel at the time, a few months before the British left, and asked for help. And the British said, well, that's not our problem. We didn't tell you to go. We didn't tell you to drive to Gush Etzion. We didn't tell you to come back. We haven't authorized anything. The weapon you carry anyway is considered an illegal weapon. We're not doing anything for you. So they stayed in this house for a whole day and night until the 28th of March, when the British finally decided to do them a favor and help them and get them out of the situation. And you'll see a picture of how all the Arabs actually massing around the house. I know it's a very blurry picture, that's what we have. And then the British came and they negotiated and they got the people out of the house. And even those negotiations didn't go smoothly. This is one of the doctors that came to help the injured, and he said, let us get the injured first. And they said, no, we will tell you who goes out first and who goes out last. Even at that time, with the British around them, the Arab argued about what's going to happen over there. You see here a report from the press of the time: Krav Noash, a desperate battle between the Hebrew convoy and hundreds of Arabs. It was more than 3,000 Arabs that attacked this convoy, 103 Balmachniks and a few more citizens. So, and Zerubbabel always became the hero of Nevi Daniel. That's how we Israelis remember him. When people speak about Nevi Daniel, it's Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel Horowitz. And again, his name becomes what's the word, synonymous? Synonymous to heroism and self-sacrifice in order to help and save his friends. Like I said, okay, we're getting closer to the end. I really want to take a very strong, very sharp shift from the sad things I was telling you. I want to really finish with something very, very nice and pleasant, which I hope will leave you with a good taste. Anybody recognizes this boy? Didn't think so. And this man? And this man?
Horowitz.
No, Horowitz was a pianist. This is
No, it's
Heifetz?
No, Heifetz wasn't. This is Bronislaw Huberman. Does the name mean anything? It doesn't mean anything about your classical knowledge. Bronislaw Huberman was a Jewish-Polish violist, very well forgotten. I suggest you go on YouTube and just print in Bronislaw, end it with a W, not a V, Huberman, and hear some of his playing. He was one of the greatest violists of his time. Yes, he was shadowed by Yasha Heifetz, it's true.
Huberman?
Bronislaw Huberman. He was born in Poland. He lived many years in Vienna. And the picture you see here is when he was a boy and he played the Brahms violin concerto, for those of you who know this magnificent piece. And Brahms was sitting at the concert hall, and Brahms was shedding tears because of the beauty of how Huberman played the cadenza. And Huberman goes to Brahms. Huberman, the boy, goes to see the great Johannes Brahms, and he says to him, "Did you see this room? People in the concert hall, they clapped, they cheered, they applauded in the middle of the cadenza." That's really bad. So Huberman said, "It's your fault. Why did you play it so nicely?" It's a well-known story in classical history. Bronislaw Huberman, Jewish, visited and played in Eretz Israel the violin recital on January 15th, 1931, at 9 p.m. sharp. He was Polish, he lived most of his life in Vienna, became a Yekel. Everything's going to be on time. And then after that concert, he toured the land of the Palestine, the land of Israel, and he was very impressed by what he saw. He said, a state, a place like that, so many Jews, all of them are so well cultured and educated, they should have a first-class orchestra, right? So he started to work on that. And he wrote letters to Chaim Weizmann, he wrote letters to the Jewish Agency, he started to collect all the money he made from concerts all over the world, to establish this I think it's called endowment money to establish a good quality orchestra in Eretz Israel. Here's another picture of him on the CD. I think you can run and get the CD. And when he was just about to start operating the orchestra, he managed to get on board another person, and I show them here not just because it's a beautiful story, it's because, you know, heroism is not always in the battlefield. You know what that is? Toscanini. Toscanini refused to play, to conduct in Beirut, in Germany, despite personal request of Adolf Hitler. He refused to play the Italian national anthem in the presence of Mussolini. He was beaten up by the thugs that Lord Mussolini sent to beat him up, and he gave all the medals, whatever medals he had, he threw it back in Mussolini, and he left Italy and settled in the States, living in New York. So heroism is not always in the battlefield. Heroism is also in the field of culture and being an ambassador for other nations, oppressed nations like the Jewish people. So Huberman, of course, after the Nazis came to power, here's what I want to show you, and I can't open the file here. It's a very famous speech given by Joseph Goebbels when he speaks about we have a Deutsche Kultur, Deutsche Theater, Deutsche Rundfunk. We have a German theater, we have a German culture, we have a German, and the idea that if we push the Jews away, we throw the Jews away, the idea that we will not have all that has been brilliantly proven wrong, and we can have all the culture we need without the Jews. A lot of Jews lost their good positions, and there were plenty of Jewish players in all the major German orchestras, in German and later on in Austria. So Huberman collected all these people, he brought them into Eretz Israel, including Jews who ran away from Poland, and created the orchestra, and it was Toscanini who was conducting the first concert. It was December 1936. I think you know what I'm talking about. This is the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra. It was known as the Palestine Orchestra. Now it is the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra. Without a doubt, one ever since then and ever until these days, one of the finest orchestras in the world. Heroism on the battlefield, heroism in the field of culture, and human spirit, like the heroism shown by Huberman and Arturo Toscanini.